Whether you're shopping for your first home, or maybe it's your fifth home, your 10th home, or maybe you haven't bought a home in the last 5 to 10 years, this is your definitive Arizona guide on how to buy a home from start to finish, what to expect, and whether you work with me or anyone else, you can expect to encounter these steps. Maybe they're explained or presented to you in a slightly different fashion, but this is your no-fluff guide on how to buy a home and where to start in Arizona. My name is Mason. I'm a real estate agent here in Southern Arizona. I serve the greater Tucson and Pima County areas. And step number one is going to be timing. A common question or concern I get all the time is whether or not it's a good time to buy a home. How's the market? Is it a good market, a bad market, a seller's market, a buyer's market? Or maybe someone brings me some information that their Uncle Johnny gave to them about what the market or economy is going to do. In my opinion, and I would think that this is probably objectively true for most people, the only thing that matters when it comes to timing is your financial status and your financial capability to pursue and close on a home in order to be a homeowner. Getting a bit more specific, maybe you're in a rental, maybe you have a 6-month lease, maybe it's going to cost money up front to break your lease. You also need to look at how much cash reserves you have on hand. There's also a number of different ways to have family help you make a purchase when it comes to the closing costs or money needed for a down payment. I won't really get into that now, but there are other options. Back to the main point is whether or not you can afford to leave your current situation and step into being a homeowner. Now, with timing in step number one, and even before timing, it's very easy to identify almost every single fee, and I wouldn't even say almost. You can identify every single fee that's applicable to a home that interests you and crunch the numbers on paper before you commit to anything. So when it comes to timing, before you sign a contract, before you commit to anything or even really work with anyone, it's completely possible to run the numbers to see if you can afford the inspection fees, the closing cost fees, the appraisal fees, the earnest money deposit, so on and so forth. The simplest way I can explain it is you need to look at your current situation, educate yourself, and be well informed on what it costs and what it takes to buy a home here in Arizona, and you can just run the numbers. Option A is going to be, hey, we're actually capable of pursuing a home within our budget, and option B is going to be the alternative of maybe we can't buy a home, maybe we're not ready. But the silver lining with not being ready is that at least if you've been educated on it, if you understand what it takes, you can paint yourself a roadmap and tell yourself, hey, if we save up another 2 months worth of income, maybe you have a new job and you need a few more pay stubs to show your work history. Whatever the reasons are that disqualify you from becoming a homeowner, you should take those items, that information, and plan your roadmap so that in 6 days, 6 weeks, or 6 months, you can get to the stage where you guys are financially ready and put yourself in a position to pursue and buy a home. Step number two is, who do I contact first? Who should you reach out to in order to start this process? I am going to say, with the knowledge that I have today and how I operate, and if I were an average Joe with the knowledge I had today, I would reach out to a real estate agent. But how do you find one that you can trust? If I were looking for a real estate agent, I would look at their online testimony or their reviews. Searching far and wide for, let's say, agents in Tucson and reading their reviews, whether it's on Zillow or Google or any other online website, is going to give you the most clear idea of what it is like to work with that person, what their potential character or how they negotiate might be. It will also fill you in and give you some insight as to what their possible expertise or niche is. For example, I love Vail. I live in Vail. I'm obsessed with this community. We're very actively involved here. So I probably know more than others about 85641 and this area that surrounds me. If you're looking for a horse property or somewhere where you want to have livestock, then maybe you start filtering through your search and find agents who lean more towards rural or horse properties. Whether you want to be in the Northeast, the far west side, south or north, wherever it may be, try to find and filter down through online testimony and reviews who works areas you prefer or may want to be in, and also who works in a niche that you also might be interested in when it comes to finding your home. Once you find a real estate agent, they're going to be able to recommend to you a number of different resources, whether it's a loan officer, a title company, maybe they need someone to help with their taxes or a 1031 exchange. Most of the time, more often than not, your real estate agent is going to have a long list in their contacts of people they can put you in touch with to help guide you and take you to the next step. One major example as to how important it is to find a good, trustworthy connection, whether it be a real estate agent or someone else in this space, is the loan officer you're going to work with. And this is just one example of how important it is to find someone that has good relationships with other sources. If you think of buying a home as a triangle, and the triangle is going to be you as the consumer, your real estate agent at the other end, and the loan officer on the other end of that triangle, all three of those pieces connect and they all talk. And it's very important that when you talk to someone, they're aligned with whoever else is involved. I've worked with 100 different loan officers, and if you ask me for a referral, I can give you 100 different names. But if you said, Mason, I want someone who you really trust, who is good on communication, integrity, professionalism, maybe they're experts in a VA loan, a USDA loan, an FHA loan. They're up to date on all the guidelines, all the programs you can take advantage of, both nationally and maybe locally within your local government. Then I can point you to maybe one or two people. And I have my loan officer that I trust dearly. She has done my personal loans on my homes. I've recommended her to countless clients as I stand here now. But again, in full transparency, I don't get any kickback. I don't get a referral from her. I use her and I recommend her because I know she has professionalism. She has integrity. When I'm not present or you're on the phone with this loan officer, I know the communication is going to be great. She's very transparent. She's upfront. She's not afraid to be brutally honest with you. So again, I can recommend you anyone you want. I can point you in any direction, but every real estate agent is going to have the people that they know and trust, and make sure that that relationship is genuine, that they're not sending you there just because they get some sort of referral or some sort of kickback. The person that I'm referencing, she's wonderful. We've had a very long professional working relationship, so I know I can trust her no matter what. But again, in full transparency, I'm happy to send you any contact you want at any bank, and it's up to you, the consumer, to decide whether you want to move forward with that person or you'd like to seek a second opinion and maybe move forward with someone of your choosing. Step number 3 is the pre-qualification. And although this is not done through me, since I'm the real estate agent, this is done through the loan officer. The pre-qualification I call the golden ticket. The pre-qualification is the way that the bank determines how much home you can qualify for. Now, this is different than how much home you can afford. The loan officer and the bank that they work with is going to look at things such as your work, your credit history, your debt to income ratio, how much cash you have on hand, how much reserves you have, what assets do they need to take into consideration. They might even look at the royalties that you have coming in, whether it's gas or any sort of other royalty you have as income. Again, the pre-qual is not my realm, not my world, so I'm going to just touch on this at a surface level, but you and the loan officer will work through getting pre-qualified. I want to be very clear. This does not commit you to a loan. This does not cost anything. This does not sign you up or lock you into a single thing. A pre-qualification is usually good for a few months. And once we get that pre-qualification, let's say you qualify for $1 million, but then you come back to me and say, Mason, we qualify for $1 million, but my budget puts me at closer to $400,000. Once we have those numbers and I know what you and your family are comfortable with, which is no more home than $400,000. Now I can set my search parameters and my search criteria to start sending you homes, and this is usually where the fun begins, because we know exactly what you can afford, exactly what makes sense. One of my pet peeves, and one thing I will not do, is just take you on a whirlwind tour of homes that range from $500,000, $600,000, $300,000, all because you simply don't know what it is you can afford, because you skipped a step and did not get your pre-qualification done, which gives you the ability to shop with intention. The best way I can describe it is if you go shopping for homes without knowing what your budget is or having your pre-qualification, it's like window shopping. You can walk past every store and daydream, but you'll never know what you can afford because you've never even taken out your wallet to see what you have in there. I think we can all agree that budget and staying within those limits and boundaries is probably one of the most important pieces to buying a home. So for me, I always recommend step 1, get your pre-qualification done, get that golden ticket. That way we can be intentional, we can be very specific, and not waste any time and be very efficient when it comes to finding you a home. Step number 4 is the home search. Now, all of you are familiar with Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes.com and all the other online search websites that are out there. But the best thing you can do is lean into your realtor, because through the MLS, the system that we have access to as licensed agents, has a lot more criteria and a lot more knobs we can turn and adjust to help narrow down homes for your search. If you work with me or if you plan on working with me, one of the things that we do during our phone call after the pre-qualification, or really at any time, even before the pre-qual, is I ask you a million questions as to what characteristics you want in a home. And I tell you, do not be reserved. Don't hesitate. Give me your dream sheet, because it's much easier to work backwards than try to slowly piece together what works and what doesn't work. One of my rules that I stand firmly on is that I'm not going to send you junk. So if I don't send you a home for maybe a day or 2 days or a week, it's simply because there's nothing that has fit the box, even loosely, for what you're looking for. I think one thing we can all agree on is that getting listings sent to you that aren't even in the realm of what you're looking for are pretty annoying, and it's a pretty big turnoff when it just gets sent to the junk folder anyways. And one thing for the record, Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes.com and all those other websites, they pull directly from the MLS. The only difference is you don't have as much buttons and fields of information you can plug in on those websites that we do. So there's nothing wrong with the online platforms. Again, send the listings you're interested in to your agent. That way I can see on my end the fields of information and the documents that are not publicly available. And this leads me to my last point for the home search. The reason why it's important for you to send me what you're interested in or what works or what doesn't, or maybe you've been eyeballing a home for a while. Maybe there's even a home that is closed that really was highly ranked on your list and you've missed that opportunity. Please still send it to me or your agent. That way we get a good baseline. We get a good reference as to what you're looking for, whether it's style of home, location of home, characteristics of home. Everything matters for the home search. And again, for me, I like working with a scalpel, not so much a sledgehammer. So I like to be precise and efficient. Step number 5 is you finally found the home. You've walked in, you've toured it. I've given you all the information that I can see, and you love it. You're ready to put in the offer. What next? Now, the reason why I put step 5 as you found the home is because, again, before you commit to writing an offer, before you sign anything, what I do with the loan officer is I take that address, and let's call it 123 Main Street. I send the listing of 123 Main Street to the loan officer. At that time, the loan officer can run the numbers as if you had already bought the home and closed on it. They can get you your mortgage payment. They can include the real-time property taxes. If there's HOA, if there's any other fees that come with the home, before you move forward, and this is big for me because I want you to be as informed and as educated as you can be before we get serious about things. This process, this step for me allows you to see the numbers in real time. They're going to be pretty darn accurate, probably within a couple dollars of being the actual amounts once you close. That way you know before you commit to this giant purchase, hey, this is pretty well within our budget, or you know what, I think we need to negotiate a bit more on certain pieces in order for it to fit our budget. In my experience with the families I've helped, when you go into a home purchase, before you sign anything, knowing what your numbers are, what your budget can afford and can't afford, that makes the process significantly easier, because then you're not behind the scenes thinking, what the heck am I getting into? Can I even afford this? What's going to happen next? Those should not be thoughts that you have, because it's very easy for everyone involved in this transaction to give you a realistic idea of what to expect and what's going to happen next. Step number 6 is going over all the documents, all the black and white, all the fine print, the stuff that no one really enjoys, but it is a necessity. And it's so important because these documents show you what you're protected against, what the steps are, what you should watch out for. And these are legally binding contracts with real money involved. So although they might be boring, you might breeze over them like we all do in certain situations. They are very important for you to at least understand what each and every document represents, what it entitles to you, and what it does not entitle you to. Now, obviously, because there's a lot of buyer and seller advisories and warnings and legal documentation here, I'm not going to take time in this video to go over all of them, but this is where you're going to place items such as how much you want to offer. Do you want any concessions from the seller? What is your closing date? Who's going to pay for the HOA fee? Is there septic? Is there solar? There's a lot of documents involved in this, more than I could even imagine explaining in this video. But again, once these documents are prepared, after you found the home, you'll sign them, you'll initial them, you'll go over every single one of them with your agent, and then you'll package them up and have the agent email them to the seller's agent for them to review and respond to you. One last piece I want to add for step 6 is once you've submitted the offer documents to the seller, they have 3 options and they do have a time limit to get back to you. On your offer documents, you and the agent can set a time and date that is an expiration date for the seller to respond to you. Typically, I give sellers anywhere from 36 to 48 hours, depending on the situation or how I'm negotiating. But if they do not respond within that designated timeline, that means the second that time and date has passed, your offer is now null and void. It cannot be accepted. It has to be redone if it does go past that timeline. Now, as long as you're within that timeline, that response time, the seller can either accept your offer in full as you wrote it up, they can reject it altogether, or they can counter you. Say you put February 15th as the closing date. Maybe they want to close February 20th. That's a counter that you can get. Now, of course, there's also a million other things that they can counter or you can discuss on the offers, but ultimately you send the seller's agent and the seller's the offer. There's a response timeline that they should respect, and then you have 3 potential responses you can get back. Congratulations, the seller accepted your offer. We're on to step 7, accepted offer, and now you're officially under contract. In Arizona, and when you're on the websites, you're going to see different statuses of homes. You're going to see active, which means the home is available and not under contract. Next, you're going to see active contingent. Again, this is one of the most popular statuses you'll see online. This means that the seller has accepted an offer, but they're still accepting backup offers, and you could also potentially go see the home even though it's under contract. Next is a status called pending, and in my opinion, when you flip the home from active contingent or even active to pending, this means all the negotiations are done. They're just simply waiting for the closing, and it's pretty much a done deal. You just need to wait to the closing date. Lastly is closed, and that's the day that you close and get the keys. Now, in full transparency, there are a few more statuses, but we rarely see those, so I won't really cover those in this video. Once you have an accepted offer, there's a lot of wheels that get put into motion, but one of the most important pieces that I can relay to you in this video is going to be your inspection period. Now, on the purchase contract, there's a section that goes over your due diligence or inspection period, and the baseline time frame in Arizona is 10 days. An example timeline might be is if your offer is accepted on February 1st, that is day 0. That day does not count towards your 10-day timeline. Now, again, on the contract, you can actually have that extended. You can ask for a 20-day, a 15-day, a 12-day inspection period, but we're going to work with the standard baseline 10 days. So if your offer is accepted on February 1st, that is day 0. It does not count against your 10 days. February 2nd is going to be day 1 of your inspection timeline. Going from the 2nd to the 11th of February at 11:59 p.m. is going to be your full 10-day window. If the clock hits midnight on February 11th, going to February 12th, your inspection period has ended, and there are consequences. I will get into those now. During the inspection period and within the first few hours or days of you going under contract, you are going to be expected to transfer what's called an earnest money deposit to the title company. I know this is your inspection period, but this is a very important piece because in this 10-day window or whatever window you've negotiated, your deposit is protected. And I want you to think of your earnest money deposit as another way of saying a security deposit. Typically in Arizona, what we see as most common, but this is not set in stone, it is a negotiable item. It can be countered, it can be discussed. An earnest money deposit is usually 1% of the purchase price. If you are buying a $200,000 home, an earnest money deposit is commonly seen at a value of $2,000. This deposit is sent from you, the buyer, whether it be you walk a check or you have your bank wire those funds, usually to the title company, but other entities can hold an earnest money check. If sent to the title company, that $2,000 deposit will be held and retained by them. During the 10-day inspection period, if you decide to cancel because of conditions with the home or some other various conditions that might occur, if you decide to cancel and you're in your protected 10-day window, you get that money back in full. Now, of course, situations may vary, but I'm giving you the general stripped down version of how you're protected during the inspection period. The consequences I mentioned earlier, if you cancel the contract outside of your 10-day inspection period, more times than not, you are going to forfeit that earnest money and the seller retains it. Again, keeping this video short and concise and just bare bones with what you need to know. There are other periods where that money is protected and you can get it back, but I will let you discuss those scenarios with your agent or your respective advisor when it comes to those earnest money situations. So ultimately, once you have offer accepted, you begin your 10-day inspection period. Your earnest money deposit is sent to the title company and it is held, and you are off to the races to negotiate the repairs and get your inspections going. In step number 2, I mentioned that you are working with a triangle. You have you as the consumer, me as the agent, and the loan officer as the next point of contact to make a nice little trio. In step number 8, that trio becomes a squad of 4, and now you have the title company involved. Think of the title company as the entity that allows the paperwork and the administrative process to begin in order to transfer the home, the real estate, from the current owner to you as the potential buyer. Now, the title company does way more than that. They check a number of things. They work with the HOA, they work with the loan officer or lender, they work with me as the agent. But the easiest way to break it down is the title company handles all the logistics and the paperwork when it comes to documenting the sale of one home and selling it to another person and transferring it into the name and having the county record that sale. The last piece I want to add for title is that the same rule applies to who you trust and who you work with, because everyone involved is very important. I have worked with just about every title company here in Tucson. I've had maybe one bad experience. The people at the title company, the men and women, are very sharp. They know what they're doing, and they are all amazing to work with. Again, if you ask me who I prefer, I can hand you my top contact, but I'm more than happy to hand you anyone and everyone in Tucson when it comes to the title company. One piece of information I want to add, and probably pertains to more sellers than buyers. If you have closed on your home within the past few years with a specific title company, if you approach them again to handle this sale of your home in present day, if you're within their time limits, they can potentially give you a discount on the seller side closing cost because they still have your files. And again, there is a specific window that I don't know off the top of my head, but there are some perks you can take advantage of by trying to use the same title company that closed on your home with the current sale of your home. Step number 9 is understanding cost. And step number 9 can be sprinkled into either step 6 or 7 or 8. And really it can even start at step 1. But I put it here because now you are actually going to face all the fees and charges that you can expect when buying a home. Now, what I'm about to list off is not limited to these. There's endless amounts of inspections and things you can pay for, but these are generally what you can expect. And I'm going to give you some very accurate numbers, and these should be applicable or within the ballpark, regardless of who you work with or what companies you use to do inspections. For this scenario, we're going to work with a $200,000 home that is 2,000 square feet. So your first fee I already covered in the previous step, which is going to be your earnest money deposit. This is a $2,000 deposit that leaves your pocket and goes to the title company for holding. Fee number 2 is your home inspection fee if you choose to get one. Now, I'm working with the company's numbers that I use, but again, there are a million inspection companies out there. Feel free to use whomever you're comfortable with or who you prefer. Typically, a home inspection goes by square footage, and the cost is usually around 20 cents per square foot. So in this scenario, on a 2,000 square foot home, for a home inspection with the company that I'm familiar with, you're looking at about $400 for a standard home inspection. Next is going to be your termite fee, your termite inspection fee, also known as a WDI, a wood destroying insect inspection. The company that I know very well and that I commonly use charges anywhere from $85 to $75. The most recent one that I saw was $75. And lastly, you have your roof inspection. Now, roof inspections for the most part are free. They'll go out there, hop on the roof, do a thorough inspection and send you the report. But every once in a while, you'll run into a company that charges a service fee just to simply go out there and inspect those homes. The last fee that I saw for a roof inspector to go do an inspection was $125. So prices may vary and companies vary by whether or not they charge a fee or whether they don't. Catching up on all the fees on this $200,000 home at 2,000 square feet, when we take the earnest money deposit, the home inspection, the termite, and the roof, we'll say the roof is free, you are at $2,485 out of pocket within the first week or two. Now remember, $2,000 of that is protected when you're in your due diligence and inspection period. The last fee you're going to see, and this can be negotiated as well, and this comes from the bank, is your appraisal fee. An appraisal fee is from the bank, so if you're financing a home, then you're going to need an appraisal. 9 times out of 10 you will. And that fee is usually anywhere from $500 to $700. And again, ask if you can negotiate this. Ask if there's any discounts. Ask if your loan officer or anyone else has the ability to help cover or pitch in to help cover this fee. All in all, with the situation and scenario in the home I've described, you're looking at within the first week or two spending about $3,000 to $3,200. An example of where this might get more expensive, let's add another $120 on, is if there's a pool. So if you want a specific specified pool inspection, then this is going to be an additional fee, and let's call it $120. And although your home inspector will look at the electrical panel and the plumbing, they are not a licensed plumbing contractor. They are not a licensed electrician. If you want the electrical system looked at more thoroughly by a licensed contractor or technician, then you can just add on their fee, bring them out to the home. And again, this just adds to the total cost out of pocket. So speak with your agent, talk about what's worth looking into more, or if you're satisfied with the findings that the home inspector and all the other inspections have returned back to you. Step number 10 are the inspections. It's February 2nd. Today is day one. Staying with the scenario I've given you in the previous steps, let's say today is February 2nd, day one of your inspections. On day 0, all these inspections should have been scheduled, and the inspectors will probably be able to get out there throughout the week. Once the inspections have happened, let's call it day 3 of your 10-day window, the inspectors will send you and your agent and anyone else you'd like the PDF files for these reports and all their findings. It is at that time that you take every report, every finding that you have been given, and you sit down with your agent and whoever else you want involved, and you discuss what you think is important, what you think you can repair yourself, or what you'd like the seller to repair, what you'd like a credit on. There's a million different scenarios, a million different options and possibilities when it comes to this period. So I don't want to get too in depth. The main thing you need to know and understand is that usually you can get all inspections done, wrapped up, and the reports delivered to you within the first 4 to 6 to even 7 days. Once you've had a time to look through everything, you've came up with a game plan with your agent on what you'd like to negotiate for repairs or credits. You put those requests on a formal document and you submit that to the seller and seller's agent for them to review and respond to you. Once you've submitted your request, your repair request to the seller, they will have 5 days. Again, that can be negotiated, but the baseline per the contract in Arizona is 5 days for the seller to respond. And much like your initial offer, when it comes to the repair request, the seller can either accept your request in full, deny it totally, or counter you and meet you in the middle. An example of what a counter might look like is, let's say you've asked for 5 repair items to be done. A seller can say, okay, I'll repair items 1, 2, and 3. I'm not going to repair 4, and I'll give you a credit for 5. You can imagine the amount of possibilities when it comes to the response you may receive, but that's a very common example of what you can potentially negotiate when it comes to repairs. Now, lastly, when it comes to repairs and depending on your negotiation outcome, once those are solidified, once those are all agreed upon, that's when all the respective parties either start working to get the repairs done, establish the documentation needed if you've chosen a credit for the repairs, or whatever else you might need to set in motion to move forward with what you guys have agreed upon as buyer and seller. One of the coolest things is at the end of step 10, which is your inspections, is that once those are done, it's pretty much smooth sailing to the end. Usually there's only a few more hiccups, but the biggest piece to a negotiation when it comes to a home are the repairs and the repair requests. More often than not, homes are going to cancel their contract or fall out of contract within the first 10 to 15 days. And usually when you see a home come back on market, it's because parties could not agree on the inspections, or maybe once you got all the reports and findings back, it's just way too much of a headache. There's way too much wrong with the home, and you don't want to take on those projects or those fixes, and you're on to the next home. Now, although last, this is probably one of the most important pieces that I can give you about inspections, and maybe I should have put this up front, but if you do not like the home due to the current condition it's in or the findings, you are entitled and protected to cancel this contract. If you cancel at time of inspection, more often than not, you are entitled to your full earnest money deposit. So in this scenario, you would get your $2,000 back and be able to hit the road again and start looking for another home. Now that we're done with inspections, everything's been negotiated, everything's been agreed upon. There's only a few more steps to go. And step number 11 is going to be the appraisal. Once inspections are done, it's pretty much smooth sailing, but there is one more big piece to this transaction, and it is specific to those who are buying a home with a loan. 9 times out of 10, you're going to need an appraisal. And although this is not my realm, this is more so to do with the loan officer in the bank or the lending institution, I'll give you a brief description and overview as to how the appraisal works and why it's necessary. For step number 11, the appraisal is a process that helps protect the bank when they lend out money for a home. When you as the consumer apply for a loan and ask the bank for $200,000, the bank wants to ensure that when it's giving you this money, the house is worth the money it is giving you. The appraisal is another version of an inspection, although they have an entirely different playbook and set of standards and guidelines that they have to operate by. But ultimately, it is a company, an individual, a licensed appraiser going out to the home, running through their list of checks that they must verify and send to the bank to say, yes, this house is in good enough condition for you to give them the money. I approve. Or there are some deficiencies with the home that do not meet lending guidelines. These conditions must be repaired or fixed before the bank can give you the money for the loan. If the appraiser comes out, he's going to assign a value to the home to say, yes, bank, this home is worth what they offered. If the home is worth less than what you have offered, then there's another piece of negotiation that goes on when you have a undervalue appraisal. Going back to the scenario where the value comes in at full value or the amount that you offered on the home, the appraiser gives a thumbs up, sends a clear report to the bank, and the bank says, wonderful, we verified the asset, we verified the home, we will give you the money that you've requested to borrow on the home. Now, much like many other aspects to this, there's a number of different scenarios that might arise, but ultimately you need to know that the appraisal is a way for the bank to verify that the home is in good condition to give you the money. And if it's not in good condition, you're going to have to enter into another round of negotiations to figure out how and who is going to pay for the repairs in order for the bank to sign off on lending the money. Now that we've worked through the inspections, we've worked through the appraisal, next is a very important piece that cannot be forgotten, and step number 12 is going to be the utilities. I've seen a number of scenarios where a family moves into a home, gets their keys, and realizes our water's off or it's about to be shut off. I don't have gas, I don't have trash, and that's because the utilities were not set up. Although short, step 12 is when an agent should send you all the contact information to set up your internet, your trash, your water, your sewer, your electric, your gas, so that when you move in, all those are transferred into your name and you're not living in the dark. It's very common to have your utilities set up a week or 2 weeks prior to you closing, because all you have to do is call the respective utility companies and say, hi, my name is John. I am moving into this house on February 20th. Please have the utilities effective in my name February 20th. It is also on the seller to call the utilities and say, hi, my name is Sally. I'm selling my home. Please have these utilities removed from my name effective February 20th. And February 20th should be the effective closing date in which you take ownership and possession of the home. Almost to the end, step number 13 is going to be the signing of your closing documents. I'll keep this one short and sweet, but a very common scenario is if you're closing on February 20th, most people think that you would sign everything on the 20th. However, you can actually get ahead of schedule and make sure everything's prepared. That way there's no hiccups on the day of closing. If everything is done, all negotiations are ready to go, repairs have been made, you can sign early. So if you're closing on February 20th, there's no reason why you can't sign on February 15th or 17th. Now, I want to be clear, signing does not mean you're committed to the home or you are going to accept the home and locked in forever. All signing early does is get all the documents done and finalized, so that way on February 20th, in this scenario, that is our closing date, on February 20th, there is nothing left for you to do. And the only thing that needs to happen is the title company sends your pre-signed closing documents to the county in which you live or are buying the home. And on the 20th, when those documents are sent from title to the county reviews them, and let's say they stamp them approved, and you get the call saying, congratulations, we have officially recorded the home in your name. The home is yours. So again, just because you sign early does not mean you are closing on the home on that day. I've had plenty of people sign and then something catastrophic happens and they are still allowed to cancel the contract and get out of the home. So signing early just allows the title company to finalize all the paperwork and have them prepped and ready to go for the day of signing. The next step I'm going to call 13A, and that's going to be your closing costs. costs and when all the money for closing and your down payment is due. Typically, before you even get to the signing or the pre-signing, you're going to know exactly how much you need to bring to the closing table. In this scenario, let's call it an even $15,000. You are going to have a line-by-line breakdown as to why and what makes up that $15,000. You're going to bless off on it and sign and say, I'm good to go. You are then going to get some form of payment, and I will let the title company tell you which type of payment they can take for closing costs. But step 13A is when you wire the final amount, the final funds for closing costs to the title company. That way they can be dispersed and sent out to all the respective parties, and you can officially sit and wait for your day of closing. That's it. We made it. We're at step 14, and that's your close of escrow, your closing day. Sticking with this scenario, it is now February 20th. It's 8 a.m. in the morning. The county office is open. The title office is open. Title company is going to send your documents to the county recorder's office. They're going to review them. They're going to stamp them, and you're going to get a call saying, congratulations, the home is yours. It is only at that time that the keys can be released to you and you have full ownership and access to the home. One caveat I might add to this is that depending on how busy the county office is, they might get your documents at 8 a.m., but maybe there's a backlog and they don't get to your packet until 4 p.m. It is at 4 p.m. or whatever time you get the call that you are allowed to get the keys and the home is officially yours. Congratulations, you've made it to the end. Step 14 is the close of escrow or your closing day. As I had mentioned before, if you have pre-signed your documents or even if you sign your documents on closing day, the morning of your closing, and in this scenario, it is February 20th, the title company will have all the paperwork done, and at 8 a.m. when they open and when the county office opens, title will send your documents to be recorded at the county recorder's office. One piece of advice that I want to give you, and I strongly encourage you to plan accordingly, is do not plan any services to be done at your house or any deliveries on the day of closing. Always try to schedule those the following day. So in this scenario, we close on February 20th. I strongly encourage you to schedule everything for February 21st, and here's why. When the title company sends all your paperwork to the county's office, the county might get them at, say, 9 a.m., but depending on their backlog or line of paperwork that day, they might not get to it until 4 or 5 p.m. For you, that means you would not get the call and you would not get the keys and you would not get access to the home until 4 or 5 p.m. And at that time, it's pretty hard to get all your services done and at the home into the evening and nighttime. If the county is not busy and they get your paperwork at, say, 9 a.m., you might get the keys and the call that the home is yours at 10 a.m. Again, I encourage you to communicate with your real estate agent or your loan officer or your title company to help figure out what the best schedule and timeline is if you have movers or a cleaning service or any contractors you might want to get in the home day of closing. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. This was a big effort to help strip down a very complicated and important process when it comes to buying a home. If you have any questions, and I'm sure you have concerns that maybe I did not cover, feel free to send me a message directly. All my information can be found at the bottom of this video, or if you just want to leave a comment, I'm happy to respond. There are 1,000,001 scenarios that I did not cover. There's a lot of complexities to some of these situations and time periods and time frames, or what your protections do and don't cover. Make sure you are working with someone that is a true professional that you have full trust in, because this is arguably one of the biggest purchases you'll ever make in your life, and I do not take it lightly. Thank you guys for watching. If I could be of any service to you, I'd appreciate it. Shoot me a message, leave a comment below. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video.